After what he said in interviews and in Parliament, this is the biggest hypocrite in politics.
Keir Starmer, pretending to be a decent man, secretly received money and gifts from the Lord. It was luxury clothes, football tickets and Taylor Swift concerts. The news host couldn't stand Starmer's hypocrisy and gave out the whole truth about our Prime Minister. He was on the verge of breaking down. We're watching the first scene.
The optics of this are absolutely appalling.
Yeah,
it gets
terrible.
worse by the day because more stuff comes out by the day. He said he's going to keep taking this. How can he stand before the... When that budget is delivered in October, how on earth can he stand next to that? Meanwhile, when times get tough in the Starmer household, he just goes, sorry, is that Lord Ali? Hi, can my wife get some more clothes from you, please? It's ridiculous.
Starmer told us that there was a £22 billion hole in the public finances. This is £5 billion more than the Labour Party had expected at the time of the transfer of powers from the Conservatives. Starmer blamed the latter for the country's troubles. Because of this, he is preparing to redefine the budget, which will be very unpleasant. For example, the abolition of subsidising fuel costs for pensioners in winter. But the Labour Party promised that their steps, even if necessary, would not affect vulnerable segments of the population. He does not keep his promises a month after coming to power. Labour will raise indirect taxes, which we will have to pay for. His ratings have suffered severely since winning the election. It is possible that the Prime Minister immediately wants to take the hit, which will be associated with a potential tax increase. However, there are some doubts about this. The fact is that it is still easier to gain the trust of the population than to win it back. Starmer said he would be honest with us and ready to make difficult decisions. The effect will not be noticeable immediately. At first it will be difficult, but then it will become easier, he tries to reassure citizens. Yes, we are fully convinced of his hypocrisy.
I took a microphone and a camera to a high street and I spoke to a load of pensioners that, you know, some voted Labour, some didn't. But the anger out there is so high. They cannot believe what this government is doing. And as you said, the optics is terrible. They are living the high life. Keir Starmer has had more freebies than any other MP over the last 5 years.
Several dozen pensioners gathered near the British Parliament building in central London. I think Starmer hoped to the last that there would be no noise from the pensioners and they would be able to tolerate his decision. They protested against the abolition of the allowance for paying heating bills in winter. The inscriptions on the banners of the demonstrators were "Do not force pensioners to pay for the crisis," which was not caused by US "Do not let us freeze." Pensioners demanded that Keir Starmer not be cruel and return benefits back. Also on the Jeremy Vine show, a terrified pensioner called, who said his faith in the government had been destroyed after voting for Keir Starmer. He said 4,000 American retirees would die under the Conservative Party, and he's no different. The only difference is that if we have a harsh winter, 20,000 of these pensioners will die, and he will save 20,000 people's pensions, which he will not have to pay. For me, he destroyed my faith in being able to vote for any political party. The pensioner explained that he is not eligible for a pension loan and owns a house with an average 2-bedroom terrace.
After what he said in interviews and in Parliament, this is the biggest hypocrite in politics. It's such a bad look, and they are so out of touch with the normal people of this country. And I would have thought that they would have given it a year or so, you know, before they decided to act like this. But it's after weeks. They've got no shame.
Keir Starmer is absolutely right that there is a significant difference between declaration and corruption, but he must understand that there is a fundamental difference between the appearance of greed and the kind of ethical leadership he promised. Receiving gifts of any substantial value creates the impression of greed when they are accepted by someone who could well afford to buy these things on their own. Starmer should have learned this from the antics of Boris Johnson. Isn't there a distorted morality in Labour that potentially condemns millions of pensioners to a frosty winter, while Keir Starmer spends thousands of pounds to dress his wife stylishly? Within the rules or not, this leaves an unpleasant residue and demonstrates a lack of understanding of what it might look like for millions of people who have to buy their own clothes and choose between food and heating. It's strange that millionaire Keir Starmer seems to need a donor to buy glasses and clothes for his wife. Does this man have no pride? Even the pensioners he targets somehow manage to choose their own glasses and clothes. Will he get help from Wahid Ali with fuel bills next time?
Also, the big problem is what is Lord Ali getting for this?
Exactly that.
Yeah.
No, we don't know, do we?
£575,000 he's donated to Labour MPs over the last 4 years. He hosts them late night, midnight pool parties at his Mayfair home. with cabinet ministers. What is he getting?
Yeah, but I think the
from
real
this hospitality.
I'm trying to be even-handed here because I've sat probably on this very couch defending Conservatives in a similar position. I don't mind someone who's rich who decides to give money to a political party of their choice. The issue for me is he was given a pass to number 10 Downing Street without having a job.
More than 100 guests, including Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, attended the event, which Lord Ali funded in London last year. The government is mired in vile accusations, and the leaders of the Labour Party have received a number of expensive gifts. Ali gave more than £300,000 to senior party figures as part of a series of donations spanning almost 2 decades. The failure of the Education Secretary to state clearly what the donor paid for will add questions to ministers' judgment, especially after Lord Ali was handed a Downing Street pass. Voters will rightly wonder why Labour MPs can't pay for their lavish birthday parties. But more importantly, ministers must be absolutely honest when telling Parliament about the donations they have received from Lord Ali and the reason they were received.
It was a temporary pass, they cancelled it. I think they realised they'd made an error. But that's appalling.
And
if you've actually got a rich benefactor who says, I support the political project you're on, there's a whole load of money and I'm going to give money to Labour candidates as well, that's part and parcel of politics. But if that very person then gets special access to number 10 Downing Street, what on earth is going on?
Apparently, according to Bloomberg, he's still attending meetings. Why?
Well, that should again be put. That should be clear what his role is and what job he can functionally.
Keir Starmer is apparently no longer in danger of being investigated for failing to disclose that the cost of Lady Starmer's clothes, including personal assistant services and fitting, was paid for by Lord Ali. They are slowly trying to hush up the scandal. The revelation is a big embarrassment for Starmer, who has vowed to clean up British politics and stamp out nepotism. Like all MPs, the Prime Minister is personally responsible for disclosing his interests. The current rules are designed to protect politics from undue influence and ensure transparency.
I think the ugly good thing about this is that it throws the doors open to seeing how the brokerage of power happens in this level of operation. And this is what happens. Like when it's one hand washes the other. If somebody donates, they're going to want something.
Of course.
Then nothing comes for nothing. And if this is the extent of it, it is a very, very poorly thought out execution plan to have someone have a pass to number 10. I still don't know who his advisors are. I don't know what issue they have with just saying, like you said, if I used to buy it for myself, I'll still buy it now, because you would look better as a Labour government. But at the same time, it is nothing new under the sun.
Sue Gray has released a report on the social events held in Downing Street at the height of the pandemic. Boris Johnson then tearfully begged the people to forgive him. They really ignored the anti-COVID restrictions they had imposed, but at the same time there were no names and details in her report. Starmer then accused Johnson of hypocrisy and asked him to resign as Prime Minister. Then he said that Johnson would not resign because he had no shame. The same can be said about Starmer now. But
it's an interesting, potentially anyway, psychological insight again into Keir Starmer, though, isn't it? How much in common with the working man and woman does this guy have? Okay. Well, if you look at his early life, I mean, anyone who keeps having to bang on relentlessly about the fact that their dad was a toolmaker implies to me that maybe they don't have that much of a working class pedigree themselves. Yeah. Surely could come up with something. It was actually a bit fields of wheat territory for him to keep doing that. Well, his education was pretty good education. There's not too much working class around that. Certainly his professional career, certainly the things he's been able to do for his mum in the later years of her life, bought her a 7-acre plot in Surrey, which she turned into a donkey sanctuary. It's fantastic.
By the way, Lord Ali has spoken only occasionally in his almost 30 years in the House of Lords. Instead, he handed over more than £500,000 to Labour. He bribed everyone there pretty well.
Sometimes I wonder and worry that British politics is a bit too hair-shirted, in that American politicians go round and lie about how rich they are, right? They put a naught on the end of their wealth. They claim to be billionaires when they're only millionaires, whereas our rich people sort of try to pretend they're poor. I mean, I actually have to say our former Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, I think, for a number of his faults, did this quite well. He said, I'm unembarrassed about the fact that I'm rich. I'm from a family that's been successful, that's worked hard. I'm not going to apologise for it.
All this now, though.
But you get the sense that this is a guilty pleasure for our present Prime Minister.
Sunak had a very funny situation during his meeting with Biden. He looked like an English cocker spaniel when he rushed to greet the American president. Biden pushed him away in order to greet the representative of the British king. The media, however, saw Biden's gesture as disrespectful to him. Here it would be appropriate to ask the question, and which of the partners and allies in the United States are generally treated with respect? However, perhaps Biden understood what he was doing. Usually, after his next prank, they rush to his aid, they take his hand, gently turn it in the right direction, and suggest something in his ear. But nothing like that happened here. Biden warmly greeted everyone except Sunak, who stood as if spat on. Rishi Sunak is not the last and not the first to be humiliated by US presidents over the past 20 years. Someone is called to his carpet like Scholz, someone is spied on like Merkel, someone is publicly insulted like Macron. What do you think about this video? Share your opinion in the comments. See you.